My name is Benjamin Glover, and welcome back to Toga Talks. Joining me today is Chris Mathiesen, former Commissioner of Public Safety and candidate for mayor in 2023. Could you tell us a little bit about yourself, introduce yourself?
Sure. Hi, I'm Chris Mathiesen. I'm a recently retired general dentist. I practiced on West Avenue in Saratoga Springs for 14 years. And prior to that, I practiced in downtown Saratoga for over 30 years. I grew up in Saratoga Springs. I moved here when I was 3.5. Grew up on the east side. I attended the parochial schools, St. Clement's, St. Peter's Academy. Went to Boston College, where I got my bachelor's degree, and then I went to dental school in New Jersey, Fairleigh Dickinson University, and got my DND. Came back to Saratoga Springs to establish my dental practice, and my wife and I raised our 5 children in a blended family. We've lived here on Friar Tuck Way since 1988. So we have 6 grandchildren in addition to our 5 kids. I became involved in politics in Saratoga Springs. I've always been a Democrat. I became involved in the Democratic Committee in the early 1990s, and I was a member of the Democratic Committee in District 21 as the committee person until 2008. 2008, we moved my dental practice over to West Avenue. I was really busy, and I just didn't have time for a lot of other activities. So I did resign my position with the Democratic Committee. But for many years, we worked very hard at trying to get Democrats elected into office in Saratoga Springs. That was very hard at various points in our past because the city was dominated by the other political parties. So it was very hard to get Democrats elected. But we prevailed. In 2000, Ken Klotz was elected mayor, and Ben Merling was elected Commissioner of Accounts, and Tom McTighe had already been on the council. So the first time in many years, there was a 3-2 majority of Democrats on the city council. So the Democratic Committee was very proud of that. That was quite the accomplishment. Also in 2000, I was appointed to the Zoning Board of Appeals. Didn't know a lot about zoning at the time, zoning and planning, although I had paid a lot of attention to the comprehensive plan meetings that had been put on in 1999. They revised the city's comprehensive plan, and I attended a lot of those meetings, and I did find that very interesting. And so when I became involved in the ZBA, I did start to take a number of courses and attend a number of programs on planning and zoning, so that I would be a more valuable member of that board. And so I learned an awful lot about planning and zoning. Also in 2000, I graduated from the Leadership Saratoga program, which is a program put on by the Chamber of Commerce for people in the community who want to become more involved. Usually there are 24 individuals who are part of that program. There are various orientations involved in the program. There's also a certain amount of participation required. And so I think that was a good thing to have done. And in 2011, some people came to me and to see if I would like to run for office as the Commissioner of Public Safety. And so I decided to do so. And I was elected in 2011, and also in 2013, and also in 2015. After my third term, I decided not to run again. At the time, I was still responsible for all my dental patients, and I decided that 6 years was enough. And so, although I really did enjoy my 6 years in office, and we accomplished an awful lot in those 6 years, I really have no regrets, and I really appreciate all the help that I got while I was in office. And I thought we've made some very valuable contributions to the city during that time. Surprisingly, things that I thought should have been done before, but weren't. So I basically retired from political life at that time until recently. After I was no longer running my dental practice, I had more time for myself, and I started attending some of the city council meetings, and was not happy with what I was seeing. I was very surprised at the way certain issues were being handled by members of the city council, especially the mayor, who I've known for years and has been a friend of mine in the past, and we supported each other. and someone that I always liked and respected. And I was very surprised, especially given the fact that he also had served as public safety commissioner for 4 years, that he was not, I thought, objecting to some what I thought were mistaken moves on the part of the new commissioner of public safety, Commissioner Mathiesen. I thought that some of the things that Commissioner Mathiesen was coming up with were things that I would have assumed Mayor Kim would have objected to based upon his years of knowledge of how this police department especially works. So I was more and more perturbed with that. There were some other things that happened over the past year. And so towards the end of the year, I decided to run for office. And so I'm running as a Democrat again. Of course, I'm a Democrat. In the primary on June 27th, I'll be running against Ron Kim. And running against an incumbent is a lot of work. You don't have the advantage of having a party behind you. And I'm looking forward to giving our voters the opportunity to make some choices, important choices, I think, on June 27th.
So, building off of that, surrounding your campaign, one of the points that I've been seeing a lot in your campaign material states the restoring civility to City Hall. It's in big bolded text. Can you elaborate a little bit about what that means to you?
Well, that means that when I'm sitting in the city council meeting, when I'm sitting in that room, I should not be made to feel unsafe. Other people have been saying the same thing. They don't feel safe. This is an unprecedented thing. I was on the city council for 6 years, but I've attended city council meetings for years and years and years and years. And I paid a lot of attention to what was going on in City Hall. And what has happened over the past year and a half is unprecedented, truly unprecedented. There's never been anything quite like this, where meetings have been halted because of a group of activists taking over the meeting. That's unheard of. That people are allowed to be discourteous to others who are trying to speak their mind. That's never happened before. I've never seen anything quite like this. And so someone needs to make sure that all citizens of Saratoga Springs have the opportunity to feel comfortable when they attend a city council meeting. They have to feel as if they are not being threatened when they make their points of view made known during the public comment portion of the city council meeting, when they're given that opportunity to speak. And let's remember that during a city council meeting, we're talking about a business meeting. People are given the opportunity to speak for a certain period of time and under a certain set of circumstances. It's not a free-for-all. It's not a free speech free-for-all, which it has turned into. That is not free speech if you're taking the rights to free speech away from other people and allowing one group to take over a meeting.
Yeah. So if you were, as mayor, as the chairman, or as the chair of that meeting, how would you respond to behavior like that?
I would put an end to it. People who are behaving that way need to be removed from the room. Period. That's absurd. This is crazy. Now, I don't know any other instance where this is happening in other municipalities. Any other municipality that would tolerate anything quite like this. Again, this is a formal business meeting. People are being given the opportunity to speak for a certain period of time, and they're supposed to be respectful of the council, and they're supposed to be respectful of people in the audience. And that's always been the case, and this can't go on the way it's going. Okay. Period. And citizens of Saratoga Springs, I've talked to a lot of people who are very upset about this. Like obviously it's making headlines. So it's pretty obvious that it's become newsworthy because something very unusual is happening in Saratoga Springs. And I think something that most Saratogians feel is abhorrent to what Saratoga Springs should stand for.
So pivoting off of that a little bit to another issue that is affecting our city, the issue of homelessness. How do you believe the best way what do you believe the best way that the city can tackle that issue is?
Well, that's such a complicated issue because there are people who are truly homeless. through no fault of their own, who need a place to live. And the city and the county and the state and the federal government need to make sure that there is a place for everyone to live, a safe, secure place for people to live, a place where people have a roof over their heads and a place to sleep and a kitchen and a bathroom, et cetera, the basics. We need to do a better job of that. There are more and more moderate and working force housing units going up in Saratoga Springs. There are quite a few going up now off of Outer Church Street. There's a plan for some units off of Crescent Avenue, and a complex has been completed about 3 or 4 years ago on Washington Street, and we need to do more of that. The Saratoga Housing Authority works very hard at providing housing for people who have no place to live. They work very hard at that. I know that the county social services people, the social workers work very hard at trying to help people who are in need along those lines. And so people who are truly homeless really need to be given the opportunity to have a safe, secure place to live. There's another issue. Again, it's very complicated, and we're obviously talking about some of the people who have decided that they have a right to inhabit our parking garage. And most of them are sitting under signs that say that it's a trespassing to be in the parking garage unless you're there parking your vehicle. Those signs went up soon after that parking garage went up because we wanted to make sure that the parking garage was a place where people felt comfortable and safe when they went to park their cars. That sign seems to be ignored. That ordinance seems not to be being enforced. I think that it needs to be enforced. I think that allowing people to basically live in the parking garage is not helping the city, and it's not helping those people. Again, we need better resources in terms of helping the people who are not simply unhoused, not simply people who need housing, but people who have other issues like alcoholism and mental health issues. Shelters of Saratoga has a great program. They work very hard at trying to find housing and programs, et cetera, for people who are not able to find a place to live and who may have had issues with mental illness and drug issues and alcohol issues, et cetera. They work very hard at that, and they've had some great success stories. But we're dealing with a group of people who opt not to take advantage of those services and instead continue to live sometimes in the woods and sometimes in the parking garage. And the people who live in the woods and don't bother anybody, I don't know what to say about that. Nobody's really, for the most part, they're the ones sometimes who are victims. They really don't seem to victimize anyone. And some of these are very, very nice people who just want to be left alone, and that's fine. But there's a group of people who have really set up shop in that parking garage that do, I think, tend to make people using the garage feel intimidated. The garage smells like a sewer because it's being used as a bathroom. None of that's tolerable. None of that's accepted. And certainly that was not what was anticipated when the citizens of Saratoga Springs invested their hard-earned dollars to put that parking garage up. That parking garage was supposed to be there as a resource to help to reinvigorate our downtown business districts. If people had a place to park their cars, theoretically, they could park their cars there. And if they were working downtown, or if they were shopping or going to the restaurants, they would be more apt to go down there because there would be the increased availability of parking. Nobody ever anticipated that it would become the complicated mess that it's become. So I really think that we need better resources on the part of social services. These are definitely people who need help. And they're also people being used as a shield for people who are dealing drugs. Because I'm really very naive about all of that. And even I can pick out the drug transactions that are taking part in the garage. So and from personal experience, I know about how that's happening. So for all those reasons, that really needs to be cleaned up. It's not, these people need to be treated in a humane way. allowing them to live in a garage is not humane at all. There have to be humane approaches here. People really who really need help, they need to be given help. Sometimes if you enforce your local laws and ordinances, the courts are very, very good, especially Judge Vero is very, very good at giving people alternatives to having to go to jail, like going into rehab or going into mental health facilities and things of that sort, trying to find help for these people. That's the humane way of dealing with this. Just ignoring this is not helping at all.
As the mayor and as a voting member of the city council, what would your policy be regarding the 50-point plan as recommended by the Police Reform Task Force?
I think it would be a really good idea for the entire community and the activists to go back over the 50-point plan. The 50-point plan now is how many years old? This is 2003. I think they wrote it, was it in 2000 or 2001? I think it was 2000. I think it would be a really good idea because I think there's a lot of miscommunication there to provide a forum for citizens and for activists to make sure we all understand what is in the 50-point plan. There's a lot of things in the 50-point plan that have been part of the policy manual of the police department for years. So it's not as if the 50-point plan, I don't know why it has to be 50, but the 50-point plan is some kind of new awakening for law enforcement in Saratoga Springs. A lot of it has already been here. A lot of that is already incorporated in the policies of the police department. The Saratoga Springs Police Department, and people need to realize, is a very well-respected department. Very few departments are so careful in terms of the scrutiny that is involved in hiring their officers, and very, very high standards. And this department also, again, as Commissioner, I know, is not at all going to tolerate misbehavior on the part of our police. While I was commissioner, 2 members of the department were let go because of incidents that occurred while they were in the department. So, I think that it's a really good idea for everyone to be on board, to understand what is in that 50-point plan, what's redundant, what things that have already been part of law enforcement in Saratoga Springs need to at least be acknowledged. What the department has already been doing along the lines of social justice and making sure that everyone is treated fairly. A lot of the complaints about the Saratoga Springs Police Department may have certainly have some veracity, but a number of the complaints are groundless, and some are frankly out and out lies about the Saratoga Springs Police Department. We've had one activist who continually for well over a year repeated the same chant over and over again about a certain incident that is absolutely not true. And each and every time he chanted, he should have been he should have been answered with the truth each and every time, not allowed to perpetuate that kind of misinformation. Because the sad part is that if you say these things over and over again, people start to believe them. That's not fair. That's a terrible blemish on the reputation of that department that is undeserved, and on certain individuals that is undeserved. And that's not fair, and that's not just. When you talk about social justice, I think you're talking about truth. When you talk about speaking truth to power, I've said this over and over again. When you speak truth to power, the operative word is truth. And so you need to start with the truth. So going back to the 50-point plan and going back to that task force that came up with the 50-point plan, I really think that you need to reevaluate where that was going, where that was coming from, what some of the suppositions that 50-point plan were based upon, whether or not they had any bearing in terms of actual facts or not. I think all of that needs to be reevaluated. I really do. And I think Saratogans would be a lot more comfortable if they were given that opportunity. And I think that activists should be given that opportunity. A city council meeting is not a good place to have good give and take on any issue. because it's supposed to be a one-way conversation. People at public comment speak to the council. If the council wants to respond at some point in time during the meeting, they can, but it's not a give and take. An open meeting would be much more give and take and give people more of an opportunity to express their feelings and express their points of view.
So if you were elected mayor, what do you believe would be your number one priority?
My number one priority in terms of the city would probably be to restore some peace, restore some tranquility to our city council meetings. But, a lot of the things that Mayor Kim has been talking about that he accomplished are good things. I mean, I'm a Democrat. I certainly am in favor of improved pedestrian access and bicycle access in the city, and sidewalks and all the things that we're talking about here. These are things that I worked on for years. I'm thrilled that the third fire station is being built on Heading Road. We worked very hard on that, and so did previous administrations. The person who deserves the most credit for that is not Ron Kim or not Commissioner Montanillo, and not me, although Ron Kim deserves a lot of credit because he did institute the original study that was done, I guess it was almost 15 years ago now, to establish the need for a third fire EMS station and establish the locations where it should be built. But the person who found that land and found that availability was Meg Kelly. Former Mayor Kelly was able to negotiate with NYRA to get that piece of land on Henning Road. I had called NYRA because one of our plans had fallen through. We thought we had a good plan. It was a more ideal location, but we thought we had a good plan, but it fell through because of a decision on the part of the Charities Bureau of the Attorney General's office that sadly took 2.5 years to be arrived at. But so when that fell through, I started calling NYRA, and they wouldn't return my calls. But Meg Kelly got them to return her calls, and Meg Kelly got us that parcel, and that's really important. So I'm really glad to see that. My priorities also, I think that we need to look at a lot of things that happen on the city council. I think we need to make sure that as the mayor, all members of the council are getting along. When Mayor Kim when Commissioner Moran told us in late summer that Mayor Kim hadn't spoken to him in 7 months. How do you run a city if you have 5 executives who don't communicate with each other? That doesn't make any sense. You have to be a facilitator. You have to bring some sort of peace and order and tranquility to these offices. And so the kinds of ill feelings among members of the city council, that has to stop. Everybody, all 5 members of the council need to get along to some degree so they can get things done. It's not a place to be lashing out at each other, and that has happened over and over again. A big priority on my end would be civility among everybody, including council members, and cooperation among council members.
Do you believe that city council members' salaries should be raised?
Yes.
Oh,
I do.
That was easy.
Right now, the last time the council members' salary was raised was in the very early 2000s. They went from $14,000 to $14,500. That was in the early 2000s. The cost of living has increased nearly every year since then, and yet we're still stuck at 14.5 for all those years. I think it's about like 21, 22 years. Makes no sense. I think that at the very least, all members of the council should be compensated at a level that would take into consideration the change in the value of that 14.5 over the years. So I think I calculated it a few years ago at least like $25,000, not 14.5. I think that would be a fair way of compensating members of the council, but 14.5 is very unfair and not appropriate whatsoever. Now, I would suggest that if an increase in salary should always be made for the next council, not for the council that's serving at the time. So if the council decides to increase the salary to a higher level. It should be done while they are serving for the next council, not for themselves. But I do think that when people are running for office, they need to discuss things like that. Taxpayers don't like to have things like that thrown at them. It's happened too often in the past. I do think that members of the council should talk about that now, while we're in the election season, to talk about a measure that should be taken by the council starting in 2024 for the council that would be starting in 2026. That makes sense. We should be raising their salary to a level that would be commensurate to the value of 14.5 as it would be translated to 2026. Just fair.
Yeah. Do you have any plans regarding your appointment of a deputy mayor at this point?
No, not at this point. It's way too early.
Yeah, so that is most of my questions. Is there anything you'd like to say to any potential voters before we go?
Well, I would just like to remind everybody that the primary is on June 27th. Early voting starts on June 17th. There will be a League of Women Voters program at 7 p.m. on Monday, June 12th. And so I'm hoping that people will be paying attention to that, because I think League of Women Voters provide a tremendous service to the community, and that's a great opportunity for people to see and hear from the two candidates.
Absolutely. And I believe early voting starts on the 17th.
The 17th, yes.
Yes.
Yep.
So if you would like to get a ballot early, that's always easier than going to the polling station on.
Better not to, though, because I think that one of the problems with early voting is that who knows what's going to happen between the 17th and the 27th.
Oh, so, I suppose,
in a lot
yeah.
of ways, I think it's better to wait till the 27th if you can. Early voting is great for people who may not be available. I was not able to vote in the last November election, last general election, because I had COVID. If I had known I was going to get COVID, I would have voted early, but I did. Who knew? But it was the first time in years and years that I wasn't able to vote. So
right,
I guess it's safer to vote early, but I think it's in a lot of ways it's better to wait until the 27th. Just saying.
See the whole election season pan out? You can watch the whole election season pan out? Yeah.
Yes, exactly. Yeah.
Alrighty. Thanks so much for joining us. I appreciate it.
Thank you, Benjamin. Nice speaking to you. Thank you.
I'll see you guys next time on Toga Talks. Bye.
Thank you.